Hello everyone, we are back today with part 3 of the best base locations in Grounded, and today we've got quite a few fun and interesting ones. So coming in at number 1 here, we actually located in the upper yard, and as you can see, you have a significant amount of space to build here. So if you want some grand design, you can certainly do that. I've also created this nice wall to wall things off, but you're also on a ledge, and you'll notice this is where you're located on the map, just to the right of the shed. Alright, let's take a look at number 2. Now this one is weird. Yes, you can build in the castle. Alright, now in order to build here, basically just go through and face this small little hole here with the mouth being in front of you. And then you're going to want to go through and drop down in this hole on the highest ledge possible, just underneath the gap here. And then go through and pull out a ceiling or a floor tile. And I like to just line it up here directly with the rock. And the reason for that, it creates the foundation for you, the actual structure to be able to build. And then after that, you can go through and basically fill this whole section out with ceiling tiles, except for one small hole to go down. You want to create a stairway directly to the floor. And then essentially you can create stairs the opposite direction to be able to go through and get back out of here. And this place is huge. You have so much room to build with, both on the bottom floor as well as on the upper floor as well. And there's nothing else in the game that has the same kind of atmosphere that you can get here. The next spot is a pretty simple one in comparison to the last one. You are in the upper yard near a cracked white pipe, and a black ox beetle will typically guard the entrance. However, this place is loaded with mushrooms, and if you can go through and build here, essentially you can block off this actual section. I also showcase this same area in my resource guide because there's branches right here on the outside of the pipe that you can place sack collectors down at. Alright, now this one is also located in the upper yard, directly across from the oak tree, and you can see where it's located here on the map. Now, I did go through and mention a similar sort of base like this in the previous top 10 base videos, but essentially you're directly above the water, and this is just in a different location. And I built a stairwell up from the rocks here right next to the pond, and essentially you climb the stairwell all the way up to the light source here at the top. And you do go through and work your way past the leaves depending on where you build the staircase, so it's pretty safe and secure. No land creatures can get to you. You do have this little lantern here as the light source, and this one is significantly easier to go through and essentially build evenly with the light source so it looks clean. The gnats will fly up and provide a nice set of food. Again, you're in the upper yard, so you have better access to all the late game resources. And then once you go through and climb to the very top, you can actually, this is where the moth spawns as well. And they're not hostile towards you, so you can have a cool little pet or creature here, and it won't cause too many problems. Just leave them alone, and it will leave you alone. It's also really high up, so you easily have access to build a nice tower here as well. If you do want to go through and basically build a zipline tower to and from, you will easily be able to do that from this location. Alright, and now this next location is also located in the upper yard, so essentially you're going to make your way to the pink car that's got the sour candy in it, and you're going to look for the cracked pipe directly in front of it. Now, essentially this area is pretty small and compact, but another great place to go through and prevent raids, as the ground insects won't come in here because of all of the water located here. Now, some of the flying insects may have better access to this than the pipe location I showed off in the previous top 10 best base locations. Number 3 in my previous video is probably the very best location to prevent every single raid in the game. Not glitching, so not including places like the hedge, for example. But yeah, this is a really good spot, pretty compact, and lots of room to work with. You can definitely live your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle dream. However, on this side, I would advise you not keeping this area open, especially as you go through and progress into the story. Because the second half of this pipe, where it actually leads to, is the berry bushes here on top. And for those of you that have played through the story, know that there is a certain specific species that spawns after you trigger a certain event here, and I am referring to the infected wolf spider. So you do have access to berries, which is great, but you do get a nasty little surprise out here if you come out this sign, so I would definitely proceed with caution. But of course, again, you are in the upper yard, so you do have access to a lot of the late game resources. Alright, and this location is also located in the upper yard, and is located here on the map. I didn't even realize when recording this that the majority of the locations were all in the upper yard, which is pretty cool because it's a lot of end game or late game bases. And essentially it is the Milk Molar container, probably the first or the second best raid base. The pipe is pretty cool, I think, and it's unique, but this definitely has really, really good protection against raids. Probably, yeah, either the first or the second best in the game. You're going to go through and look for this specific cap here, and you can build yourself a nice little stairwell if you want so you don't fall down all the time. Now, where I am going through and swinging my axe at this current time, there actually is branches you need to cut down first before you can actually gain access to this area. You will find some information and data down here as well. Now, you will notice that you can't build in the actual cave itself. It won't let you place structures up until a certain point as you get closer to the container. And of course, this place is loaded with the teeth, so if you don't have them already, there's 5 in here. and it is quite spacious as well. There's a whole lot of room to build in here. So if you want something cozy, of course, you can definitely build in here, and of course it is safe too. Any structures that do clip on the outside, though, are vulnerable to taking damage. But yeah, it's definitely a safe spot and secure, and of course that's again in the upper yard, so all of the late game resources are at your fingertips. Alright, now this is going to be the first one featured not in the upper yard. It's a pretty basic one, but honestly probably one of the most popular locations in Grounded, and I haven't even included in any of my lists so far. So I definitely felt it was time to go through and include it, and yes, I am talking about the pagoda. It provides an insanely large space, both horizontally and vertically, to go through and build. Protects you from basically every single land creature. Your only real concerns would be raids from mosquitoes or wasps. You have a whole lot of room to build. You have a field station in your base to scan and upgrade items, and it's easy to go through and build this all the way up to the top, which you can then extend to build a zipline tower to everywhere in the yard. There's not too much else to say. It's a great spot, and it's close to the oak tree as well. Alright, and now we are back to the upper yard, or what I like to call the middle yard, because it's actually just below everything else, and essentially it's as soon as you get up from the pond, and there's not too much here. Your only real concerns here would be ladybug larvae and ladybirds. However, in this area, you are surrounded by a moat on this little island. Now, it is not a huge space to go through and build, but you are essentially protected from all of the bigger creatures. Now, they can go through and jump over to your base if they wanted to, so I've built this nice protective layer. And then you can go through and fill in the water if you wanted. I think this is a very, very unique and cool place because you have water at your fingertips and no real major threats. And then you have access to, of course, all of the late game and end game resources in the upper yard. As you can see, there's a ladybird over there, but you are very close to the edge of the pond as well, with the rocks being right there, so you have all the dandelion stems and mushrooms to easily build up a large little fortress in this area. Definitely something very unique, and definitely worth mentioning. Alright, now this next one here is also a very commonly known one, but I have not included it on one of my lists yet, so I definitely felt the need to go through and include it now, and that is the top of the Brawny Bin. Now, I'm pretty sure there is no larger space in the game where you can go through and build that is this high up. You can build on the front porch, of course, but that is significantly lower. Having this elevated position, it makes it very easy to go through and build ziplines all over the yard. And of course, you are in the upper yard, so again, you have access to all of the late game resources. You do have to go through and deal with these bugs here the first time around, but after that, they will be gone until New Game Plus, unlike the other one that respawns every 5 days. So once you clear these guys out, you can have yourself a very, very large base, very convenient and safe for the majority of threats. The only real concern would be flyers. For some reason, you triggered a raid with the wasp or the mosquitoes. Alright, let's move on over to the next one. Alright, now this next location is located also in the upper yard, or what I like to refer to again as the middle yard, and essentially basically are just building directly above the ladybug larva den, and the only real way to go through and to get up here is a small elevated position. Basically, there's just a small little tree branch or one little incline that allows you to get up here, but it keeps you safe from pretty much everything else. No real threats here outside of flying creatures, but you're honestly in a relatively calm area. There's no flying creatures nearby. It would have to be through a raid that they get triggered to you. You have quite a bit of space to go through and build on this middle platform here, and again, no real way to get up to you. You do have a field station in your base, so easy access to scanning and upgrades, and of course, you're in a great location in regards to resources because you're kind of almost in the middle of the map as well, just in a slightly more better version, just due to having access to the endgame resources like charcoal being literally right next door. Alright, let's move on over to the next one. Alright, now this next area is also located in the upper yard. Again, kind of that middle yard type area, literally right next to the barbecue. Now, a really interesting note here is that just to the left of the barbecue, you have this very, very large space to go through and work with. And in this specific area, there's only one creature that actually spawns. You will get ladybug larvae over in the actual barbecue area, but if just in this left area here, the only thing you'll have to deal with is a scarab beetle. There is nothing else that spawns here whatsoever. You do have creatures above you on the higher platforms, most likely going to be too far away to cause any issues. Occasionally, a ladybug larva may wander over, and then you do have a mixer here, so if you complete the mixer, you won't ever have to worry about bugs coming here. If you haven't completed the mixer, then you may have to worry about, getting raided or your base getting damaged during that mixer event. But outside of that, it is a very quiet area, makes it very easy to gain access to the rest of the upper yard, like the termite den, or even easy access over to the picnic table. And there is some good resources to go through and farm up here, lots of grass to work with, some mushrooms, some clovers, everything you need to build a pretty decent base. and it's safe. So if you want access to the upper yard early on, and you want to get somewhere where you can build early on and be relatively safe, this is definitely a great location. You cannot place sap collectors on this branch, however, so that's a bit unfortunate. But everything else about it is really solid. All right, let's move on over to the next one. All right, now this next one is actually located in that exact same kind of upper yard, middle yard type area. Essentially, it is right next to the barbecue. Literally, the moment you ascend it, you will find this enormously large size rock. Now, you do have the wolf spiders underneath the actual barbecue itself, but I mean, look just how large this rock is. And the thing is, most creatures won't actually wander over here because there's another set of small rocks just to the right of it, separating this from the upper yard. Your only real concern would be flyers during a raid, but you have an enormous amount of space to build with, and it really puts you in a great spot, far enough away from all of the dangers, but close enough to have access to all of the great resources. And again, you can build towers pretty much everywhere. The only real concern is berries will be clear across the map in both capacities, both the hedge and the little berry area near the actual castle, but everything else is great in regards to location and a lot of building space as well. And that's pretty much it. It's big, it's open, and it's fairly safe. All right, let's move on over to the next one. All right, now this next base location is kind of odd, but it was actually a comment left in my previous base location video, so I figured I would share it off because I actually didn't know about this. You can build on the bat in the upper yard. So you can build on the bat directly, and basically you want to provide different layers of foundational support by basically placing foundations or floors throughout the bat at multiple different levels, because if that one specific point gets broke, you will lose your house. As you can see, I've got 2 pillars here with different foundational support, but you can also place foundational support in the end of the bat here as well. This is actually located on the upper yard porch as well, so if in case you're wondering where it's at. But basically, it's a really good location because it's very centralized in regards to all of the late game resources. Now, it is kind of high and above, and you will need some building materials to build out. Mushrooms will probably be the easiest to do this to, but you literally have access to everything. You can see everything really well from here, with the exception of maybe the back corner of the yard where the stump is located. But pretty much everywhere else in the yard has really good access with zip lines. And yeah, you get a nice little view as well. Now, if you were concerned that you don't have enough foundational support, you can actually jump down here. And this over here won't give you foundational support, but the hammer will. And there's different points you can build on throughout the hammer, and then go through and just build up to provide additional support for that location. All right, let's move on over to the next one. All right, now this next one is actually quite the opposite of what every other base has been so far. It's located in the lower yard, and I would not consider this a late game or end game viable base, but essentially you're on top of the little trunk here, or the giant log that has fallen over. You can build sap collectors here in the actual area, so pretty easy to access sap, and you can literally just run all the way up to the top, and the leaves actually provide foundational support. All right, and now for the final location, we're actually going to be located here in the lower yard as well, out on the lily pads. This is a pretty common one that people often resort to early on, and honestly, it's great. Yeah, a really cool location, very scenic too, one of, I think, the best locations in the game, being as central as it is. It does just require some planning and quite a bit of resources. And there you go. That is the end of the third of the best base locations in Grounded. I think at this point we've covered 40 different base locations in Grounded. I might be able to find enough base locations to do one more video. I found some pretty weird spots that you can build at, so I'll definitely be willing to share those. But let me know down in the comments what your favorite base location is.